This is Gemara and Shekalim Daf Chof Aleph. All the learning for this month, the month of Nisan, as we conclude the month of Nisan with the conclusion of the month with the Masechta of Shekalim, has been sponsored by the Grun family. Li Nishmas Chaim Mordechai ben Naftali Tzvi. The Neshama have a tremendous Ili Neshama from the schos of all the learning of the entire Chabura as we conclude this wonderful Masechta of Yerushalmi of Shekalim tomorrow. Of course, our Chaylim man Vaveng Chaim Mesar Shalom ben Chaya Shalom Sivan Reizid El Sar Bas Kenan Delit Basin was Chayesay Yisrael ben Mindel as their person Shavlei Shalom Bas Naami Shavig Shulchan Valdavini Teriva Shmo ben Tila Nim Khan Rizal Mukhay Bas Min Librach was Avimus the Dinir Bashin Mindas and Rotavi ben Avela Feshes Vim Vega Dvorm the Khan is when the Huva Menachem Mendel ben Taiba Besoy Shachli Israel Laz Khashirach for Atalei Basita and Menachem Mendel ben Elisheva. We pick it up on the bottom of Chaf Amid Beis, moving into the second to last half of Masechta Shekalim. Mirza Hashem, tomorrow we will be concluding and then going strong into Masechtas Yuma. So if you know anyone that fell out over the difficulty of Shekalim, send them a message, call him up, remind him, let's get going. Yuma is on the horizon and it's going to take us all the way, Mirza Hashem, till Rosh Chodesh Av, about right before Rosh Chodesh Av, we'll be making a siyam b'siyata d'shmaya on Yuma. But first, let's get to Shekalim. Says the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom, Daf Chafam Beis. Koyin Gadol Shemes. So we had it in the Mishnah that the Koyin Gadol that dies, we have this halacha of the Mincha Chavitin, the special carbon that we spoke extensively about yesterday. The carbon that the Koyin Gadol brings on the first day of his inauguration and every single day of his service, whereas a regular Koyin brings it only on the first day of his inauguration. We said what happens when he dies, who brings the carbon in his place until they appoint a successor. So we had a machlekes whether it's going to be the Yarshim or whether it's going to be the Tzibur. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Ramamel Boy Mechalfa Shitase, he switched the opinions there of Shimon, he switched the opinions of Machalvi Shitasi to Rav Shimon. The opinion of Rav Shimon is switched. Taman Amar, like we learned over there, Mishal Yarshim Ach Amar, Mishal Tzibur, and therefore he's going to switch it up in the Mishnah. Amar Rav Chia, moving along to Daf Chaf Aleph, Amar Aleph, Amar Rav Chia Bar Ba, V'lo Yeyos, but it is not V'lo Yeyos Umaksha. Is he not asking a good question? Meaning, we didn't read it as a question, but basically the Gemara is asking a question that it seems that this opinion of Rav Shimon, which one is it? Is it coming Mishal Tzibor or is it coming from the Yarshim? We have 2 conflicting reports what it was. Says the Gemara, Asar Rav Yaakov, Baracha, Rav Avu, B'Shem Rav Yechran, Dvar Teirahu, Shetivah Minat Tzibor. So the Gemara does not really answer the question so much, but says the Gemara that the Gemara is answering the question. Apologies. Midar Raisa, it comes from the Tzibur. We're going to read it with the parentheses. Machlek is exactly how to read this as always, a bit easier with the parentheses. So Midar Raisa, who pays for the carbon minchas chavitin of the deceased Kohen Gadol, the congregation, even the Chazdaka Milcha Lishka. What happened was they saw that people weren't giving money, and therefore were squeezing the lishka because all the money had to come from the Beis Hamikdash itself. So Yarshim said, okay, we got to collect it from the Yarshim. Kiva the Chazu de Pashuba. But then they saw that the Yarshim are being negligent. It's kinush that they ba mitrumas halishka that come from the trumas halishka. So it comes out that it's not a steer at all, just 2 different parts of history, whether it came from the community or whether it came from the Yarshim. Says the Gemara, Rav Yisi Amar Rav Yechon Ba'i. He asked the following question: Mao, what is the halacha? We saw in the Mishnah that when we bring the minchas chavitim, we don't bring it, we bring it whole. Generally, the Kohen Gadol himself brought it in 2 halves, half in the morning and half in the afternoon. But we saw that when the Kohen Gadol is not bringing it, but rather we're bringing it for him, we saw in the Mishnah that you bring it whole. So says the Gemara, what does it mean you bring it whole? Shleima b'shachar, shleima bein harabayim. Are you bringing 2 different minchas chavitim, a full in the morning, a full in the afternoon? Or shleima b'shachar, betel bin harabayim, and the whole thing in the morning and nothing in the afternoon? Explains the Gemara, answering up what is the meaning of whole in the morning or twice whole. The following was Pashit Minchas Tamid Shleishes Lugin. Ma Hein Shleishes Lugin Shachris the Shleishes Lugin Bein Arbaim. Does it meaning we're furthering the question, what exactly is the correct detail? Is it that it's Shleishes Lugin, it's 3 lug in the morning and in the afternoon? Or do we learn out? No. Lugum Echsa Shachris, Lugum Echsa Bein Arbaim. Meaning it's the same question. These are the other accompanying details with the Minchas Chavitin were these lugin. Were these 3 measurements of oil? So when we said that you have to bring it whole, again, the same type of question. Whole means 3 lug. So is it 3 lug in the afternoon? Or is it 1.5 and 1.5? And furthermore, a third part to the question. Amar Rav Chizkiya, oif hadas richalei. Furthermore, we're going to ask, Shnei Kumatzin Mahin. What is Allah with the Shnei Kumatzin? Obviously, the koim between the 3 fingers bit of the Levina, of the part of the frankincense. What is Allah with that? Shnei Kumatzin Shachris. Ushnei Kumatzin Ben Arbaim. The same thing. Do we bring 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon? So Amar Rav Yosa comes along. Rav Yosa, Klom Lamanu LeKoimetz. Do we learn all out from the Koimetz Loy Minchas Chayte? Similarly, like we saw yesterday, really everything comes back from the Minchas Chayte and Malahalon. Shnei Kumatzin Afkan. Shnei Kumatzin. And therefore, that is going to be, not that it's going to be. Now, this is very interesting because how do you read that line? Afkan Shnei Kumatzin. Does it mean 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon? Or does it mean 2 in total? And of course, as we've seen many times in Yerushalmi, this is going to be a machlekes of the Mafarshim, how to learn a Pashib Shan in this line. The Carbonita learns, means 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, whereas there's a Talmud or Rashba that learns it's 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. Amar Rav Chizkiya, Klum the Manu Shlosh Lugin Lo Mitam Shabin Arbayim. Similar answer. It's going to be, so it says just like over there is a question over here. So we have clarity, we just don't know what exactly is the Gemara's answer. Says the Gemara, so we said with regard to the Para Aduma that there's going to be no Me'ilah with the ashes of the Para Aduma. Says the Gemara of Shimon Bar Nachman Shem Rav Yonasan B'din Haya Shem Aluba. Really, these ashes of the Para Aduma, there should be Me'ilah. Vein Gazu Shlo Yim Aluba. They made a special Gezeira Bezdin enacted that there's no Din Me'ilah, meaning that you're misusing Beis HaMikdash property, that there's no Din Me'ilah with the ashes. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Vatani Chatas Malam Shemailin Ba. We learned that the Torah says the word chatos teaches that there's yes me'ilah with it. So why are you telling me that there's? I'm sorry, melami shamayelin ba moyalin vein loyalin ba'afra, and there's no me'ilah but ashes. But we see that this is a din daraisa. You just explained to me. You Rav Shimon Bar Nachman Shem Rav Yonasan just explained to me it's a din darabana that there's no din me'ilah. But what do we see clearly? We see clearly there's no din me'ilah even on a daraisa level. Answers the Gemara. Amar Rav Avua B'Rishaynaya Mishtak Shekin Ba. Originally, people were either Mishtak means they weren't using it properly or something like that. Why not? Because there were special medicinal and healing spiritual powers to the ashes of the Para Aduma. So people were misusing it and they were taking the ashes and putting it on their own wounds. So the Gazus, they made a din of Me'ilah. Once they stopped using it, then Gazus Maluba. So then they made a gezerah that there's going to be no din of me'ilah going back to the original din daraisa, similar to what we saw in the top of the Amud. So really, you're right, there is no din me'ilah on a daraisa level, but they made a gezerah that you're not allowed to use it because they saw people using it incorrectly. So then they went back and removed that subsequently later. Says the Gemara, finishing off this parek valakinim and the birds. Ha'isha azois, this woman, b'mahim is chaberes. How's she going to get her kapara? We know that the kinim, there were 2 elements to it. There was a carbon chatas. So where's her carbon chatas? This woman, the zavada, the yeledes, that has to bring the chatas, is no chatas bring bort. Amar Rav Yitzchak Tanai, bezdinu, teretz we've seen already. Ha'misabik, zakinim u'misabik, zabsulas v'zahoivdais. Special Tanai bezdin, that the suppliers are going to supply one in its place, in order to make sure there are no issues. Hadron aloch perek mo'ish nimsu. We must do a chazara of the 7th and second to last parak of Mesechtes Shekalim. Hopefully it's getting easier in all forms, getting easier just in time to be wrapping things up. Let's go in and begin the 8th and the and the last parak, moving into the last dafim. Says the Mishnah, Kol ha'roikin animsayim b'Yerushalayim, all roik, spit, that's found within Yerushalayim. This obviously is continuing the theme of the previous parak. Previous parak discussed other items that are found. Now we're going within Tinei Toma V'Taira. But no, get too concerned. First of all, because there's not that much left. And second of all, because we're going to see that all of the halachas they're about to see, or if not most of them, are going to be repetitious to that which we've seen previously in this Masechta and in Psachim. So says the Mishnah, Kol ha'roikim all spit and imsayim b'Yerushalayim tahirim. The spit is tar chutz. We shall shuk ha'elyon, except for the spit in the upper shuk divir ha'meir. Of course, this hopefully sounds very familiar right away because this is a Gemara in Psachim. Says the Gemara, that's Rameir. Rav Yosi Aimer b'Sharkali Mirzashana. The rest of the year, Shebe Emsat Tmeim. Spit that's found in the middle of the street, that's tummy. Shebit stadim tahirim. What's on the side of the street is tar, and of course, the Gemara is going to explain all these different cases. B'shasa regel during shalish regalim shebe emsa tahirim shebe stadim tameim. On the side is going to be tamei, and everyone already can conjure up in their brains the simple differentiation that during shalish regalim there are going to be more people there, better people there, so there are going to be more people tahar, so they're going to be all in the middle of the street. Whereas the rest of the year, the people there are not necessarily. So in the middle of the street are going to be the Tameim, but we'll see that in the Gemara in a moment. Because the minority always goes to the side. Okay, part number one in the Mishnah was spit. The Mishnah continues. All vessels found in Yerushalayim, derech Yerid, on the way down the mountain. We'll see what this means, which hopefully should sound familiar. Lebeis HaTfilah, on the way down to the Beis HaTfilah, Tameim, derech Aliyah Tahirin. Of course, we assume on the way down, someone dropped it on the way to be Taivalit. That's the reason why it is Tameh. Because it's not the same thing, obviously. Rav Yosi no. He says, Rav Yosi, no, we're in Yerushalayim. We always assume everything is tar except for the specific items. The hammer, the basket, and the shovel, which were used to bury dead people, used in the Beis HaKfaros in the graveyard, those items, says Rav Yosi, will be tameh because those are used for tameh purposes. Now we continue part number, which should sound probably familiar. The knife that is found on the 14th. The 14th of what? 14th of Nisan, Erev Pesach. Shoiched ba miyad. You find a knife in Erev Pesach, you can assume what's everyone doing with knives? Shacht in the Karban Pesach. So obviously this knife is tahar. You're allowed to use it right away. Bishleisha, so let's say you found it a day earlier, then not necessarily, because we know you have to taivel it, and then you need a Herev Shemesh, you have to wait for nightfall. So if it's a day earlier, we can assume, perhaps, someone didn't taivel it yet. So b'shleisha aser shayna umatvel. You have to taivel it again. Kupatz. What's a kupatz? That's the big cleaver. What's the difference? The difference is, as the tikkun chadatin, as we remember from the Gemara in Psachim, is that the big cleaver is used for cutting bones. So what's the point? Gemara Pesach, of course, you're not allowed to cut the bones. Etzem leisis brubai. So says the Gemara Mishnah. Sorry, if you found the big cleaver, even if you found it a day early, you still have to taivel it, because there was no specific reason someone would have taiveled their meat cleaver, because you're not allowed to break the bones anyways, so you don't need it until the next day, for the 15th, for the Karban Chagiga, the Karban Shlamim, on Yantif, so there's no reason for it to be tar. I'll just quickly point out what the Gemara Psachim, I believe it was Daf Ayin over there, spoke out extensively, because we all remember that there was a second Chagiga, a second Shlamim, which was brought in Erev Yantif, for which purpose? So that one could fill himself up, because you have to go into Yantif being full, so that the Karban Pesach is eaten and fills you to the top. So the question is, there is a Karban of Shlamim that's being brought on the 14th. So maybe if you find the big cleaver, you should assume it is tar for that Karban Shlamim. So back in the Gemara over there, the Gemara said one of these interesting cases that no, they wouldn't do it because maybe the Kohen Gadol or the Nasi is going to die, and you're going to have to be metame to them. And therefore, when you're tamei, you're going to bring the Karban Pesach because tameh hocher dechuya b'tzibur, but you're not going to bring the Karban Shlamim, and therefore, on that potential possibility, they're not necessarily going to have the big knife ready for the Chagiga for Erev Pesach Chagiga, because the Erev Pesach Chagiga, that special Shlamim, was not a din daraisa, it was a din darabbanan to fill you up, and therefore maybe they weren't as concerned about that. But either way, back into our Mishnah on the last line of Daf Chav Aleph, Chalar ba'asar liyos b'Shabbos. Like this past year, unfortunately, we didn't have a Karban Pesach, but when the 14th fell on a Shabbos, Shoiched ba miyad, you'll add a shechta right away because we assume that the knife is going to be tar, even the kupats. Why? Because you're not allowed to table things on Shabbos. But tasvav sheikh babiyah, if you found it on the 15th, you can shechta right him like shula sakin, hareu kisakin. If you found it tied together to the knife, you found the cleaver tied together with the knife, then you can assume it has the same status as the knife, and therefore again we're going to assume it's going to be tar. Says the Gemara Chafal from Beis. 2 lines from the top. Rav Avim b'shem Rav Shua ben Levi. Katzron shall nachron hayisham. Katzron or Katzron, I should say, there was laundry of the Goyim there. What's this? This is on the Shukah Elyon. The Mishnah taught us that everything in Yerushalayim is Tahara aside for in the upper Shuk. Why is the upper Shuk Tameh? The reason being because there were Goyim that hung out there to do the laundry, and therefore if you find Reik, if you find spittle there, maybe it came from a guy and therefore it'll be Tameh. Amar Rav Chanina, Aruda is Ayanoichrem Yerushalayim. There were these mules, wild donkeys that were in Yerushalayim over there in the upper Shuk, and that's another reason why there were Goyim that were there hunting them. And therefore, maybe that's another reason why the Reik is going to be Tameh. Now, there's a bit of a different gear here that makes things a little bit easier. So let us read that out. That Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, there was a story that they were hunting these wild donkeys in the for the king's army. Now we're back into the Gemara. And those who went up to the Eile Regel, there was so much blood, it was all the way up to their knees. And they didn't say anything to them, meaning they did not tell them that they are Tameh. Why not? Because we assume where did the blood come from? It came from these wild animals, and therefore they're not Tameh. Why are they not Tameh? They're not Tameh because the blood of an Nevela is not going to be mitame them. Again, now we're switching courses right away. We started off telling us that there's laundry people there, and therefore the spittle is going to be tummy. Now we're switching courses. Now we're saying that they used to hunt these animals, but these animals are all nevelas, obviously. An animal that dies without shchita, and therefore the halach is going to be that the blood is going to be not mitame the person, says the Gemara. And now we're going to go into a Gemara that we had almost carbon copy, if not exactly, previously. Says Gemara of Simon b'shem Yeshua ben Levi. Ma'isa prepared to Mishal Beis Rebbe. There was a story with the mule of Rebbe's house. Shemei said it died. V'tiharu es tameh misham nevela. They said it's no big deal. You touched a dead animal, so you should be tameh. No, you only touch the blood, and the blood of a nevela does not make one tameh. Rav Lazar shal Rav Simon. Rav Lazar asked Rav Simon, ad kamo, until how much blood are you not tameh if you touch? And he didn't pay attention to his question. Shal Rav Yeshua ben Levi, the same question. Amar le ad Ravius tar yoser mikan tameh. Till Ravius your tar, more than a Ravius of blood. Then, even though he came from an Avila, it's going to be mitame. Uboyish le Rav Lezer. Rav Lezer was embarrassed. This is, I'm sure, the part that everyone's going to remember. He was embarrassed. He didn't answer him. Rav Simon Shemusa Rav Bibi Avi Yosef. He was sitting and they told him over the following story. Until how much is it not going to be metame? Again, the blood of an avil. Until Ravi's is tar. Again, the exact same din more is going to be tami. And he kicked him. This is, I'm sure, the part. Kicked him. He didn't listen to him. This is the part everyone's going to remember. I don't understand. Because I asked you a question, you get upset at me? What's going on over here? So he responds, I'm sorry, Amarle begins to love his daitebi, because my brain wasn't with me, that's why I got upset. And we see a precedent for this. It says your life is hanging me negative opposite you. That's someone has enough money, they could buy wheat for the whole year. You'll be afraid at night and during the day. You have a little more money, a little bit less money. You can have no life at all. That's one who buys from the baker. And therefore I didn't have my brain with me, and that's why I got upset at you, but nothing to do with what you did wrong. Says the Gemara. So my Kedin. So what is the maskana? So again, let's just remind ourselves, we're talking about the blood of an avelo. the carcass itself would be matami. We're talking about the blood. Is the blood give off tama? So says the Gemara, the blood does not give off tama. However, we had opinions that told us, but more than a revius of blood that would give off tama. Now the Gemara says, okay, at the end of the day, what is the halacha? So hey, Rav Yeshua ben Pesaira al dam nevila shutar. So ma'utar, what does it mean? It's tar. Tar milachshir halitame mitame. It's tar from making something else susceptible to be makabel tama, but it itself is tummy. Again, there's really three stages. As I was relearning this now, I realized last time we didn't really speak this out perfectly, so Baruch Hashem, we have the opportunity now to really tie up loose ends from last point. There's really three different stages. Stage number one is you become tummy. Stage number one is you touch the blood, you're tummy. Stage number two is that you can make someone else tummy. Stage number three is that you can make someone else susceptible to be makabel tama. It's really three different stages, and the Gemara here is saying that the dam of nevela is tar. What does it mean it's tar? It's tar from making something else susceptible to be makabel tama. However, it itself is tame, and it will make something else tame. So again, this cup of blood is tame. I touch the cup of blood, I am tame, but am I now susceptible to be makabel tama? Well, I'm never susceptible, whatever. But if it's an item, the fruit or something that becomes susceptible to accept toma, once it gets wet, then it would not have that power to do that. Says the Gemara, Tamon Tanino, we learned over there, Dam Hasheretz, again, hone in, Hasheretz, not a nevela, Hasheretz is Metame Kibisarai, does give off toma, Metame Venoi Machshir. Says the Gemara, it's metame kibisarai, but it does not make something susceptible metame kama. Vein lanu kayotzebay, and this Brisa concludes that there's nothing like the sharetz. Sounds like there's a special din by the sharetz that it doesn't give off tama. But we learned that this din applies even to nevela. Answers the Gemara, no. Vein lanu kayotzebay kishir tama asai is nothing like with regard to the shear. Avol damai metame kibisarai, but it does actually give off tama like its flesh by the nevela, like we just said before, if it is a sheer revius. Rav Yosi, Pliba, Train Amarayim, we have a machlokes chanam artame v'chanam artar. Madam artame, Rav Yudah, Madam artame, Rav Shubem Psaira. Amali Rav Duma, Dimin Nechuta, v'yos, and it's correct. Rav Yudah Marayna, Divinisiu, Rav Yudah Vinisa. He was the one that was in charge of the house of the Nasi, which is what the original story began with the mule of Rebbe's household, and we take testimony in that story that the mule was tar, the blood that came out of it, but it was only tar until what quantity? Until a ravius, more than a ravius, it's going to be mitame. And that was a nice chazar of concept that we've seen. So again, we're coming out that the blood of nevela is going to be, itself will not be mitame. It will not give something else susceptible to mekabel tama. But once there's a ravius of blood, then it will give off toma. Says the Gemara Kol HaRoikin. All the spit, going back to the Mishnah, 6 lines before the wide lines. Lo chein amar Rav Avua b'shem Rav Yesi ben Chanina. Loi gazru ala roikish b'Yushalayim. Didn't we already learn that there's no din toma on spit in Yerushalayim? So why are you telling me it's tamei? Like we learned, there were these laundry men over there. Says the Gemara Shibeles meaning in the middle. V'atayir malchin min hatzad. V'atayir malchin is the v'atayir malchin min hatzad. Now we explained. This is in the Mishnah. The Mishnah differentiated that throughout the whole year, the middle is tamei, the sides are tar. During the Shalosh Regalim, it's the opposite. The middle is tahar, and the sides are tamei. Explains the Gemara. B'shar yimaysa shana hatameim. Those who are tamei, they walk in the middle, and the tahirim walk in the side. And so what happens? Hatahirim malchin sam. They just walk because they're on the side by themselves. V'atameim aimerlam paraishu. And the ones in the middle who are tamei tell the guys on the side, be careful, don't come close to us. But b'shas haregel on the first wide line, when it comes yantiv time, then atahire malchin shibaylis. The guys who are tar, they walk in the middle. V'atamei malchin min hatzad, atamei malchin snam, v'atahire naimirlan paraishu. Stay away from us because we are tamei. That's going to be the difference between how many, the quantity and the rife of who is tamei and tar throughout the year versus the shalosh regalim. And we said in the Mishnah, Any vessels that are found on the way down or tummy the way are tar. Ask the Gemara what's going on over here. Says answers the Gemara. You're right. True, the normal vessels are not tummy. But we found it on the way down. It's as if we know here, and therefore that's the reason why it's going to be tummy, because we know you're on the way to the mikvah. Going back to the case of the Mishnah, we said there's three utensils: the basket, the hammer, and the shovel, that are tamik, to use for grave diggers. Says the Gemara that Abishal called the hammer a tzipayrin. Mandamar tzipayrin sheyadayim tzipayrin. It was like a fingernail, was pointy. And the maritza was a crusher. Shemritza and Esav and the basic kvaras who would crush the stone into the grave. Two different pshatim what this item was. Koipetz tana esagin shura law reizek k'moisa. The exact opposite of what we learned to the Mishnah. We learned to the Mishnah that if the koipetz is tied to the knife, then it's tahar like the knife. This is a brisa that says the exact opposite. Says the Mishnah, halacha beis, we're only going to do the first Mishnah, as tomorrow's daf is a bit shorter, so we'll leave a little bit more for tomorrow to keep things balanced. Says the Mishnah, again, we're on Chaval from a base, 5 lines into the wide lines. If the parayches became tamei, with a vlada toma, meaning a toma derabanan, matvilin oisai bifnim, we toivel the pareiches. The pareiches was many pareiches, but particularly we're discussing the pareiches between the kodesh and the kodesh HaKadoshim, which in the second Beis Hamikdash was not a wall anymore, but was a tremendous pareiches due to the height, 40 amos by 20 amos, which we'll see probably more tomorrow. And if it became tamei, if the actual pareiches became tamei, they would taivel inside the Beis Hamikdash. They would put it right back right away. Let's say it became tamei with an avatoma, deraisa tama, they had to take it outside the Beis Hamikdash to taivel it. And v'sheitchen, they would spread it out in the chel, because once it has the deraisa tama, has to stay overnight. So you spread it out so that it could dry. Let's say it was a new pareiches, and the halacha is the new pareiches needs to be toiveld, go into a mikvah before it's used. They had a new pareiches twice a year. They would put it up on the roof, on the benches, so everyone would see the wonderful work of the pareiches. She know that it's beautiful, and they would come to donate towards the Beis Hamikdash for the cost of the pareiches. The thickness was a tefach. Al shivim u'shtayim nimin, it was 72 threads. Ne'reges al kol nima v'nima chav daled chutim, and each thread was 24 strands. So it's 72. I guess we'll call it like the loom guys, and each strand was comprised of 24 different parts. Arka mem amma, like we just said, it was 40 amos long, tall. 20 and 20 amos wide, which is roughly 60 by 30 feet. Was made out of 82,000 or 820,000, I should say, 820,000 gold dinars. The machlek is whether this means the dinars or the weight, but either way, they would make 2 every year, like we pointed out. It required 300 koyanim to pick up this tremendous pareiches I put in the mikvah, which we'll see tomorrow is a bit of an exaggeration, and we'll pick up from here tomorrow as we conclude Shekalim tomorrow.